Sarah Hancock, and I am the Community Placement Coordinator at NAMI San Diego. I have a really exciting job, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about my personal journey. It's funny, you could look at me here. I'm in my gorgeous dress. Got my hair all done. I'm with my dear sweetie. We've been married for 3 years. And looking at me, you would never know that in 1998, I was diagnosed. I'd had my first psychotic break. And I was diagnosed eventually with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. For those of you who don't know what schizoaffective disorder is, basically I have the best of both worlds. I have schizophrenia, which is a brain disorder where your brain plays tricks on all 5 of your senses. And I have bipolar disorder, which means I ride the roller coaster of life. Everything's either really exciting or really upsetting, and it's a journey. Many with mental illness and their family members are aware of one thing, and it's exactly what Ms. Dunlop spoke of. It's the feeling of feeling alone, the feeling of walking alone. I walked alone with my illness for more than 12 years. It wasn't because I wasn't surrounded by people. People say I'm actually one of the lucky ones because I had treatment, and I guess they're right. But while enduring 12 years of failed treatments, I felt I walked alone. I was fortunate to have family members who were loving, although confused by my symptoms, and I had my church and my leaders and friends there. What others might have perceived as a host of support, I still felt alone. Tried as they might, people just didn't understand what it was like to have a brain that played tricks on you. They weren't okay with my illness, and they weren't okay with my behavior. You'd be startled how your brain thinks when your chemicals are off balance. And I just couldn't find that magic wand to instantaneously cure me. Consequently, I felt increasingly isolated, even among family and friends. I burnt a lot of bridges because a lot of people were just scared. They didn't understand it. Slowly, I slipped into silence. People heard me, but they didn't listen. People looked, but they couldn't see. Truth be told, if 5 years ago someone had asked my father or my mother how I was doing, they would have just told you that my illness, the doctors had said, was very grave. So what changed? After 12 years, I became so fed up with my illness-riddled brain and living like a ping pong ball bouncing around between institutions, hospitals, crisis homes, and some pretty scary group homes. You can imagine I was frustrated. I was frustrated and I was angry because nothing was working. To say I lived an unstable life is grossly unstated. My inpatient doctor had long ago given up on me, and many of the hospital staff had also given up on me. They referred to me as the girl racking up mileage, frequent flyer miles, because I was in and out of the hospital about every 6 to 8 weeks. During my heaps of spare times, their disparaging comments rattled around in my drug-dulled yet frighteningly noisy head. I was sick of it. I'd had enough, and I decided to defy them all. I'd show them I could do what they couldn't. I could fix me. And I began searching, and I finally found NAMI San Diego in 2010. And in 2010, I took my very first class taught by someone who was a trained peer support specialist, meaning that they had a diagnosis as well. And the person who taught my class had my diagnosis, and my jaw dropped. There they were, teaching this class, living an independent life. They weren't stuck in an abusive group home. They had their own apartment. They had family, and they were working. And I was like, how are you doing this? And we had a wonderful 10-week brainstorming session on how I could do that. And you know what? I did. Little by little, I learned how to use my recovery tools. Yes, I still have symptoms, but they've subsided to the point that my doctor says I have lived for 5 years now in remission.
Yeah!
So within months, just months, of starting to use those recovery tools that I'd learned from people who had my illness, I decided I needed to go back to school and get my master's degree. And so I started graduate school at San Diego State University. I decided that I wanted to help other people like me, and so I wanted to become a rehabilitation counselor to help people with any kind of disability get the accessibility and accommodations that they need to work at their fullest potential. And they believed in me. They told me, "Where do you work? You have such insight." And I was like, I work in an office. But it was a wonderful experience. I worked hard. During my graduate program, I met the man of my dreams, and I was scared out of my gourd because I had to tell him that I had schizoaffective disorder. So it's not just schizophrenia, it's also bipolar. And when I told him, he looked at me and he said, "So, you're still Sarah."
You're still awesome.
Mental illness is a chronic condition. It's not just going to go away. But I want you to know that recovery is possible. When I talk about recovery, I'm not saying recovery, you no longer have symptoms, you're cured, it's all good. When I speak of mental health and of psychiatric recovery, I'm talking about recovering your life. I graduated with my master's. I took my national exam. I am now a certified rehabilitation counselor. I've lectured at more than 10 universities, more than 30 times, about recovery and how it's possible. I know that it all began with NAMI and my peer-to-peer class. And for that reason, I am so excited to jump on board and work with NAMI and continue to provide free classes to other people like me who at the time might not have hope. But as we walk together with them, they do. I am here to tell you, recovery is possible. And with the proper support, it's not just possible, it's probable. There is no deadline on potential. I am the evidence.
Oh, that's awesome.